they actually got up in court and said, well, we may need more time for this to go to trial because the case is complex. Complex? She charged it within a matter of days. How is it complex? She clearly was able to wrap her head around it. And, again, this idea that there was a large amount of discovery kind of tells you it is highly likely she didn't review all of those materials between the Monday and the Thursday, right? Like, she didn't look at all of this. And to present a case to a grand jury without being fully versed in what those materials are, particularly when you have a memo from career prosecutors that say, not just that we don't think we can obtain a conviction here, but that we think proceeding here would violate DOJ policy and may raise ethical issues.
Right.
I mean, like, red flags all over the place. Like, you don't present that case to the grand jury without saying, hey, you know what? If I'm a responsible lawyer and I've also never prosecuted a case before, I better take a look at all this and make sure I'm comfortable. But that's clearly not what happened here. She got her marching orders from Donald Trump, and she followed them. And so, I think regardless of what the timing is, they are going to be exposed here. This is not how you proceed. They are going to be exposed in any number of ways. I don't think it will get to trial. I think this will be dismissed because she's not properly appointed. But I mean, this is going to be a farce.
Yeah, on that point, right? I mean, Patrick Fitzgerald says we're going to file motions clearly around selective and malicious prosecution, for which there's a high bar. But on that point, we got new reporting at the Wall Street Journal tonight that message that Trump posted to Pam Bondi online was meant to be basically a DM that he accidentally posted publicly. He meant to send a private message urging her prosecution of FBI Director James Comey and his other favorite targets. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation. He believed he had sent Bondi the message directly, addressing it to Pam, was surprised to learn it was public. Bondi grew upset, called the White House aides, Trump, who then agreed to send a second post praising her as doing a great job. 5 days after the Saturday evening message, Comey was indicted. It strikes me that that's materially relevant to the filings that Pat Fitzgerald is going to make on Comey's behalf, Joyce, that this is selective and malicious prosecution.
So look, Pat Fitzgerald has seen a lot of lawyers attempt to file selective and vindictive prosecution motions and fails. He understands what the law is here, and the highest standard for people trying to make this argument is actual vindictiveness, that the government had actual vindictiveness towards their client over the exercise of their rights. If this DM isn't evidence of that, I don't know what is. I think that this case will be dismissed on this ground, perhaps on selective prosecution too, which is the suggestion that the government is targeting your client for prosecution that wouldn't be brought against anyone else. In this case, everything the government does makes the defense's motion stronger. You know, the story we were all talking about a couple of days ago about the Trump administration trying to find a couple of beefy FBI agents so they could perp walk Jim Comey into the courthouse in front of the press. Well, that again is evidence of vindictiveness, that they're trying to humiliate this defendant, not prosecute him for legitimate criminal conduct. I don't think this case makes it to trial.
I'll just note to the viewer that Joyce's selection of the adjective beefy there comes directly from the reporting. That was what those reporting.
And the evidence and the case and the witnesses, she just rushed in for a deadline and charged it. And no one else would sign their name next to what she put. The Times reports 2 prosecutors in North Carolina now been assigned to the case because she had, quote, a hard time getting anyone in her new office to help. Think about what the Times is reporting. Her new office is in the Trump administration. These are all Trump people, but many of them say it's not a real case. You might violate your legal duties to pursue it, or they don't want to be a part of a clunker that could turn into a loser. She did not speak in court today. She was reportedly in her chair nodding when a junior prosecutor represented the department. She was the only prosecutor to sign the indictment. I'm going to remind you of that, like I said there. And the indictment itself doesn't have a lot of evidence. It's 2 pages. It's about congressional testimony. Comey's team is out there going on offense today, and with all due respect, they have a legal team, several DOJ lawyers with far more experience than the new prosecutor that Trump called in. They say they haven't even been given real specifics on the charges, that they are going at the whole case, seeking its dismissal, and They're going to use Trump's words against him, saying that they have evidence to prove, and these aren't just any random defense lawyers. These are some very skilled, decorated DOJ veterans, one who worked as a Republican, Fitzgerald, investigating high-level matters. They say they can prove, they think, that it's a, quote, vindictive and selective prosecution. They also say this new hand-picked prosecutor might have problems of validity. The government doesn't have a lot of details, but they claim they need more time to introduce what they call classified evidence. The judge already, on this first day leading to the trial, quote, skeptical of the claim that the nature of this, remember, we're talking about public testimony about issues that have been discussed for years. If this weren't so important, some people might say, I'm a little tired of stories about the Clintons and James Comey. But of course, this is Trump's revenge tour. This is what he wants everyone to focus on. And the judge is skeptical that there's going to be new classified evidence. The Times said it kind of projected an air of polite impatience on the first day of Trump team's effort to prosecute the former FBI director. Quote, this does not appear to me to be an overly complicated case, the judge added. Again, striking at the obvious. There isn't a ton of new evidence against the director. What there is old evidence that was previously dismissed, found lacking by perfectly motivated Trump appointees who, had they had the case before, would have presumably been willing to bring it. Indeed, they take an oath to bring cases that are supported by the evidence. Now, a new prosecutor, lonely in her office, doing Trump's bidding, and today seemingly outgunned by some of the more experienced counsel against her, is going to try to take the director to trial. That trial, if there is no intervening event, will be set for January. We're joined by Andrew Weissmann, former FBI general counsel and Mueller pro prosecutor. Welcome.
Nice to be here.
Let's start with the little bit of new. We did hear for the first time from a judge assessing what is a very thin slice of this, because we're not at trial. What did you make of the judge's reception today?
Well, what he was responding to was the first of what I believe will be many efforts by the government to slow the case down. They were clearly not doing what normally a prosecutor does, which is like, we're ready for trial, let's go, let's set a date. Remember, this is the so-called rocket docket. Yep. And so the government said, Judge, you should delay the trial because it's complex. Under something called the speedy trial rules, if you could declare something complex, the government's given more time. A false statement case, which is 2 counts, is very unlikely to be a complex case, and that's what the judge is reacting to. But the news here, the sort of the import of it, is the government is going to be, and I think this is going to be the first of many efforts by them to slow the case down. Yeah. If they don't have a winning hand, that any day that the case is not dismissed or they do not lose the case at trial is a good day for the government. This is an unusual position for the government to be in. And I thought they looked very weak today in a false statement case, showing up and saying, Judge, please delay the case because it's complex. I mean, that felt facially not terribly plausible.
Right. You're saying that alone makes them look bad. And on simple cases, this is clearly a simple case. It's not a RICO case. It's not a bunch of organizational evidence. It's a couple of discrete facts, as the judge said. And as you know, having been a prosecutor, Andrew, there's a bit of what they sometimes call the Lauryn Hill rule, where confident prosecutors say, ready or not, here I come, you can't hide. And you're telling us we're getting the opposite from the Trump prosecutor, saying, I need more time. I'm basically not ready. And maybe they are a little bit afraid. They're the ones hiding from what this could ultimately look like. With that in mind, you can say, OK, Weissmann said this. The news anchor said that. What about more Republican veterans of the DOJ? Here was new from Andrew McCarthy, well-known, I'd say pretty conservative prosecutor type. But here's what he said.
I don't believe they have a case, Bill, based on what we've seen in the indictment and what we know from the public reporting. But now we're going to find out. I just think that factually they have a very difficult time making this case.
Andrew?
I agree. And I point out just another aspect of the weakness, which is one of the things that they said to the court, the government did, is another reason to delay this case is because there's going to be so much classified information and we're going to need to do litigation under what's called the SEPA statute, which governs how to deal with classified documents. Again, that remains to be seen, but that does not seem to be the case here, that this is going to be a case that involves lots of classified documents. So between the statement about please exclude speedy trial time and give us more time because it's complex, and the government saying, oh, there's lots of classified documents, so that's going to involve this complicated process about how to deal with classified documents. Those are both weak statements. And it's understandable because the trial team, as you noted, Ari, are not the trial team that had been on the case investigating it. They are brought in from outside. So they clearly are not ready. But that is so unusual. I want to make sure people understand. The government, when you indict a case, you need to be ready. Your only responsible response to the...
This is a massive deal. And it means that at least some of these phone records are now going to be the subject of a criminal investigation, which means that they're going to have to be discussed and they'll be forced to hand them over like as a matter of law. If Donald Trump's private texts were leaked like this, and now there's an indication that from Trump's phone or Trump's office computer, or apparently Trump doesn't use a computer, it's all done through his phone. If this was accidentally sent, but now it's confirmation that this was meant to be private, now I think Comey's team is going to have to be like, we need to see these texts. You need to get us Trump's phone. We need to subpoena it and all of that, because we need to know, like, what else is he sending? Let's say he actually did send 2 private messages to Pam Bondi that are now evidence in this discussion of, is this political prosecution? Because we now have one public one, and now we have evidence giving us probable cause, because now it's like, you know, the taillight is busted, so now there's an excuse to pull you over, right? This is that's my interpretation, at least. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I think that's a reasonable interpretation, because again, what we all thought, and reasonably so, I was one of them, I never thought to myself this was an accident. I thought Trump is so brazen, so egotistical, so, you know, used to flouting the law and usually getting away with it. And he has been convicted, of course, but, you know, he didn't serve an hour in jail. I guess he got pulled into the county jail to get mugshotted in Atlanta, but like that, you know, he hasn't spent a day in jail, despite being a multi-time convicted felon, right? And so when you think about it, I was like, okay, he's just breaking the law, or at the very least, he's just out and out admitting that this is a blatant, malicious, revenge-laden political prosecution. He's just saying it on the internet, on his own social media, where every journalist that covers American politics in the world follows that Trump Truth Social account. It's unfortunate as it is, it's news. But turns out, apparently, according to this new reporting, it was accidental. He didn't mean to send that in public. Even Donald knew how bad that looked. They meant to send that in private, and they didn't. And because they didn't, now we have proof that they were trying to hide the specific machinations of a political prosecution. And now the question for me, and I think the question for Comey's lawyers, is, what else did they send? Because this probably isn't the only message. And what did Pam Bondi send back?